What is up? Welcome back to the PFF podcast. It is Thursday, November 2nd, meaning we are officially halfway through the NFL season. Week 9 preview coming up, and we just got news of some terrible news. Deshaun Watson tears his ACL at practice, out for the year, was probably the shoe-in for Rookie of the Year at this point in terms of the national award. He was fourth in our voting, but that's just awful. Like, the Colts-Texans game, I tried to get it on the line. It's 12.5. I tried to get it on it right when I saw the news. Still couldn't, unfortunately.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I know. So pray for me. I'll make it through. Hopefully Deshaun does too.
Steve, have you got that Joe Thomas drink to pour one out for Deshaun this time?
Yeah, we'll pour a little bit more coffee. We're going to pour more coffee
yeah.
onto the podcast floor. There it is.
Taylor cleaned it up for us. All right, thank you.
Taylor. Yeah.
But let's get into the weekend's games and start off with that Texans game. Colts travel to Houston to face the Texans. Texans, like I said, were favored by 12.5. Don't think that's going to be the case anymore. Deshaun Watson was, for all intents and purposes, that whole offense for a lot of the last 6 or so weeks. Without him, Tom Savage, a quarterback, it's just I don't even think they'd be favored in this game with Savage.
No, I think there's a good chance they wouldn't be. They're missing a lot of players now. They just traded away Dwayne Brown on the offensive line that was already struggling and made to look even worse when Tom Savage was back there. I think the Indianapolis are probably the team to beat in this one now. Deshaun Watson was everything to that Houston Texans offense, and he's not there anymore.
Yeah, it's a game changer. I mean, Savage looked terrible behind that offensive line. Watson, continuing to improve every week, and the biggest thing is he just brought playmaking ability to that offense. He was going to have his usual rookie bad decisions, and had some ugly plays in there. But man, going into Seattle last week and attacking Sherman and attacking Earl Thomas, no fear from Watson. He is a playmaker.
What does the scheme even look like with Tom Savage back there? Do they stick with all the changes that they made to accommodate Deshaun Watson, which didn't just help him because of what he could do, but actually made the offense viable with that offensive line, etc.? Or do they go back to what they started the season with, which looked like a disaster with Tom Savage back there?
Yeah, that's part of the issue, right? Bill O'Brien was doing a great job of adjusting to Watson's skill set, changing the scheme, simplifying it, more play action. There's elements of that Tom Savage can run, but a lot of it had to be Watson, right?
Yeah.
So, they do not have a lot of talent on that offense. They've scored a ton of points with DeAndre Hopkins playing really well, Watson being able to give him shots down the field, Will Fuller being a touchdown machine, which our friend Mike Clay will tell you has to regress to the mean for you fantasy guys, and an offensive line that's really not that great. It's going to be tough for Savage to elevate that offense the same way Watson has.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson, since week 3, the most deep passing yards in the NFL, 559. Tom Savage, week 1, did not complete a single pass, 20-plus yards downfield. It's just
so many fantasy
DeAndre
owners.
Hopkins is just crying.
DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, every fantasy owner that owns any of those 3 people, all in tears.
Yeah.
I got Hopkins in a couple leagues. I'm crying right now.
What do we think, though? Texans, like I said, they're still at home. The roster, though, if you take away Watson, offensively, there's still talent at the receiver position. Like you said, he made a lot of that offense work from a running game perspective. He made that offensive line look better than it was. It is an issue still. Tom Savage sitting duck back there. I know the Colts don't have much of a pass rush, but where do you see this one going now?
So I still look at the Colts defense. They're not great by any means, but they still have a bunch of these, veterans that have come in and done a decent job. I feel like that'll be enough to at least keep them in the game. What is this? This is going to be probably a low-scoring game now.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
Oh, bang the under.
And Brissett's one of those guys that he's had a lot of games so far this year where he's graded well in our system and it just doesn't show up in the stats. He's been a bit of a roller coaster ride, but again, overall, more good than bad from Brissett, and it's a chance for them to steal a win now.
Yeah, I still think the Texans, just because I don't trust the Colts anywhere. I think they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. They don't have a lot of talent, and even though Tom Savage on a short week would worry me, it does worry me. Yeah. So it's going to be low scoring. I will concede that probably.
I'm going to stick with the Texans just because the last time a quarterback change happened late in the week and I switched my pick, it was Derek Carr and it screwed me. So I'm going to go the other way this time and stick with Houston, and it's going to screw me again.
Probably. Steve?
Can we officially change our picks?
Go ahead.
Do it now.
I'm going to stick with Houston, though.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with Houston.
We'll
I'm going to stick with Houston. But what about pick watch? if I wanted to.
Yeah, you can just fire him a DM. You get it done.
Really?
Yeah, those guys are good.
That's what I did.
I'm in
I thought
14th, I think.
Okay, Steve. Let's
Just
not.
saying.
No one wants to hear about how good your picks are. All right.
No, forget it.
PFF Analytics is crushing it.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, let's keep it moving. On to the Falcons, who travel to the Patriots. Falcons.
Where are you ranked?
I just said no one wants to hear about our pick records.
Hey, look, I'm crawling. I'm above 500 again, so things are moving in the right direction.
Keep going. Sorry.
Falcons 1.5-point favorites heading to the Panthers. This is somehow the Falcons' first divisional game of the year. A little behind the 8 ball, though, heading into this division. They're behind the Saints a few games back. Thought they'd be in a little better position. They got to really roll through the six divisional games to have a chance at winning the NFC South. Where do you see this one going, Steve?
I'd like the Falcons to start playing like the team we thought they were going to be earlier in the season. Matt Ryan looked much better. Look, I think a lot of their issues offensively were simply Matt Ryan not playing as well as he did in previous years. I understand that the scheme is not as creative and they're not creating as many open throws or whatever, but Matt Ryan is generally a top 7 or 8 quarterback in the NFL, had not been playing like that until last week he started throwing the ball much better. You take out some of those drop snaps in the tough rain. If Matt Ryan just plays up to his capabilities, I think they're fine. And I'm ready for him to get back to what he is. And, the defense, they have a more well-rounded pass rush, even without Vic Beasley for much of the season. So Beasley's back. They've got enough guys to get after the quarterback. I like the Falcons.
Ballsy. This entire division is playing out exactly as we predicted it to before the season, which is, I think all 4 of these teams were looking pretty good on paper. We suggested that one of them was probably going to fall behind the other 3, and then the other 3 would it would be this fight down the stretch because they all play each other to figure out exactly who the legit teams are and who are not. And so far, it's Atlanta, Carolina, and New Orleans all in the running. The Bucs have fallen behind already, and they're kind of out of it, but could act as spoilers. And I don't think we really know yet exactly what any of those teams are. The Saints maybe look the best of the group, but actually the analytics suggest that they're behind both the Falcons and the Panthers, even though they beat up on one of those teams earlier. So I think this is the first game we're going to start to see something come from that. The Panthers scare me because this whole potential of what that offense could be with Christian McCaffrey and Curtis Samuel in there and how creative and devastating it could be. It just isn't. It's not.
Is it a little too forced?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, they've figured out that they have these movable chess pieces, but it's almost like every time they move one of them, it's a strike to that guy. There's no misdirection involved. There's no setting up the hook. There's no jab for the hook. It's just every single thing is a windmill punch hoping to knock the guy out. There's nothing that sets up all these plays. So every time they move McCaffrey around, they're throwing it to him.
Right.
I think they just need to figure out how to be a little more subtle with all these moving pieces and get something involved there. And so far they haven't been. I do think that defense, though, is a completely different unit when Kuechly is in there because
I agree there.
It gives them just this coverage weapon in the middle of the field that makes every window tighter than it was before. And obviously he was back last week against Jameis Winston. He'll be back this week. I think that might be the difference.
I'll say I think the difference in this one is the fact that Kelvin Benjamin, not with the Panthers anymore, helps that Panthers offense. That Panthers offense is better with Kelvin Benjamin not on the field. You cannot convince me otherwise. If you look at that 2015 season, there's a reason why.
Cam was spreading the ball around.
Forces the ball to Kelvin Benjamin when he should not be forcing the ball to Kelvin Benjamin. He just cannot separate and was not good enough at the catch point, in my opinion, to justify the throws he was getting from Cam Newton. I just think they're better off.
I agree with you. I think that receivers whose thing is I'm not going to get open, but I will win contested catches are bad for quarterbacks' development because you're asking those guys to do something they shouldn't be doing, which is throw the ball to guys that aren't open.
Christian Hackenberg, freshman year.
Blake Bortles.
Throwing.
Is Allen Robinson a quarterback killer? Is he the
Allen
reason why
Robinson?
Hackenberg and Bortles aren't good?
Well, Allen Robinson was the key. Allen Robinson was the key to the 2015 unbelievable Blake Bortles season.
He could get open as well.
Right?
I mean, I don't think it's a case. I think it's a case of receivers who are only able to win at the catch point.
No, I hear you. Look, and the other thing with Benjamin too, forget about the fact that you just he's a jump ball guy or whatever. 3, 4, 5 times a year, wrong route, not tough enough to catch point. There was something that would lead to an actual turnover. It wasn't just an incompletion. We saw it against the Bears a couple weeks ago. Got bossed on a slant, ends up an interception. So Carolina might be a little bit better if it's Cam spreading the ball around and not focusing on him, more Devin Funchess.
They're less dense now, though. Less dense in the receiver bodies.
Mailbag pod talked about Kelvin Benjamin's density. I like Atlanta, though. Gonna bounce back.
I'm taking Carolina.
Yeah, I took Carolina.
All right, on to the Bengals, who travel to the Jaguars. Jaguars 5.5-point favorites there at home. Jaguars over the weekend, adding Marcel Darius to that already ridiculous defensive front four. They've invested an unbelievable amount of resources into that defensive line, and it looks like it. Like they play like the best defensive line.
I love it.
It's unbelievable.
They instigated that call. Dave Caldwell was the guy that phoned up looking for that trade. I love the idea that with their defensive line, you start calling up guys.
Let me pay $10 million more to another.
You start calling up other NFL teams looking to add defensive linemen.
You can't have too many. It's great. Just keep loading up over there. And it protects your secondary, but you also have a secondary that's playing unbelievable, whether protected or not.
Yeah.
That's how you build elite defenses. I love the move.
Yeah. They look just... If they had anyone at quarterback position right now, I would call them the favorites to win the Super Bowl with how good that defense is. If you had Alex Smith at quarterback for them, I call it. Like that defense looks just there's nothing you can do against them now. Like
I had this asked of me on radio today. What does Jacksonville do in the future at the quarterback position? In this offseason with guys like Ryan Tannehill, Teddy Bridgewater, Alex Smith, Sam Bradford, potentially out there on the market, Kirk Cousins. But do they just get an Alex Smith? You know, if Kansas City's going to move on to Patrick Mahomes, I think it's going to be, first off, it's going to be a fascinating offseason, but they found a way to at least protect Blake Bortles with this defense, with this running game. I just don't know how long that can last. At some point, he's going to have to try to win games for you. Right now, they're really protecting him by just making him hand the ball off.
And I will say about Darius, he has not played up to the level of the contract that he signed, but even this season, not being motivated, whatever, didn't want to play for the Buffalo, still has an 80 overall grade, still playing. He's still an upgrade for the Jaguars, even playing at the level he was.
He's always been good. It's just that he has potential to be so much better than good.
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes Lewis, top-graded run-blocking tight end because you guys need something specific to watch for the game. Mercedes Lewis, watch him as a blocker.
Don't do that. That would.
That's what we do here, right?
that seems like a terrible thing to...
That's the stuff to highlight.
Focusing on. Okay.
Watch Mercedes Lewis in the run game.
Go ahead and watch that, though. I'm picking the Jaguars. Steve?
I get the Jags, too. That pass rush, too good against Cincy's O-line.
Oof,
yeah, we've all got the Jags.
All got the Jags. Yeah, sorry, Bengals. That just looks like a terrible matchup.
Our hometown Bengals.
Yeah. On to the Bucks, who travel to New Orleans to face the Saints. Saints, 7-point favorites. Bucks in complete free fall. What happened to them? Where'd they just... They were supposed to be at 9-7 a season ago, team on the rise. They are 2-5. They've lost 4 straight. Nothing looks good on either side of the ball. They were everyone's dark horse this year, and
I don't think they're as bad as they look. I think they've just run into good teams and a tough schedule. It's kind of like we talked about the NFC South. It's just one of those teams is going to have a worse record than they actually are as a team. Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Bucs were the team that bounces back next year, because I don't think the talent will be that much different, right?
Well, here's the thing. They've had the 11th hardest strength of schedule so far this season. Do you know what they have for down the stretch, the remainder of the season?
8th.
The second hardest strength of schedule.
It's
not getting any more pretty for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as the season wears on.
Jameis Winston, is he ever going to be...
So this isn't the year he's
going
to have...
Jameis's... Because should have been no excuses this year. They have a fairly good offensive line.
We are going to go through his entire career.
OJ.
We're going to go through his entire career with Steve waiting for him to break out and have this elite season, and it's never going to happen.
He hasn't been bad.
No.
I'm not saying he's bad, but just like, is this who he is?
Yes.
This is...
has always been and forever will be.
He's currently number 10. PFF grades, 80.8. He's got the highest percentage of positively graded throws. I didn't check his negatively graded throws this week, but he's still probably top 2 or 3. That's what he is. There will be a year that the negatives just disappear. There will be.
You calling him? Is he Carson Palmer? Is that what you're calling him?
Oh yeah, I've always put him in that Carson Palmer, Cam Newton. Our analytics guys were clustering quarterbacks and saying like, what styles are they? Cam Newton, Carson Palmer, and
God, I love the interracial
Jameis
comp.
Winston.
That's like
the what?
The interracial comp. Winston is Carson Palmer.
He is
number 1 picks. Not
Josh Rosen.
living up quite to the hype, but good enough that they're starters.
He'll have a 2015
years,
Carson
and he'll
Palmer.
have a 2015 year.
There will be a year that But we're 3 years into his career, and he's
25.
He's 24 years old.
I'm just saying it's never going to happen.
Oh God, I'll be here every year saying it's going to happen.
I don't think this is the game that it happens. Marshawn Lattimore, I want to see if he shadows one of either Deshaun Jackson or Mike Evans. That'd be fun to watch.
Yeah,
there's your thing to watch in that game.
The thing with Winston, real quick, by the way, he's not a roller coaster like game to game this year. He's a roller coaster within games.
Play.
Like playing terrible for 3 quarters and then terrible, good at the end. Playing great for 3 quarters. It's just not. Mm-hmm. It's game to game, play to play inconsistency. Marshawn Lattimore, absolutely against Deshaun
he shadowed
Evans.
Brandon Cooks in week 2. He shadowed Devonta Adams in week 7. Possibility.
Might be Deshaun Jackson.
I would say Deshaun because Crawley probably doesn't have. They probably don't have enough.
This is what we talked about Lattimore, though, because he's got the size for the big guys and the quicks for the quicker guys. I mean, he could do it all. I think Deshaun Jackson might be the guy in this one, based off that history.
We shall see. I like the Saints, though. I don't think this one is too much of a debate.
That Saints defense continues to improve. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All going Saints on that one. On to the Rams, who travel to New York to face the Giants. Rams, 3.5-point favorites. I'll be honest, I ready to bet the Rams in this one. Not a lot on paper suggests that the Giants have some joy in this one. Janoris Jenkins suspended for this one. Is that correct? Or is he just
a lot of issues in that team? DB room.
That DB room is they're just pumping each other up, hating on their own team probably day after day. They're not happy with how things have gone.
Yeah, this feels to me like one of those games that the Giants have already had this season where every single thing suggests that they should lose the game and they're going to somehow find a way of winning this game. The defense can have one of those games where they just dominate. They get a couple of turnovers off Jared Goff. They start rolling. Somehow their offense gets enough rolling to neutralize Aaron Donald and escape, turning the ball over 7 times themselves, and they end up shocking everybody and pulling off an upset at home. I have no logical reason for that whatsoever. Other than the fact,
Sam, this is why you just cracked 500 with your picks. It's because you're just throwing out no logical.
But these happen every single year. There's one of these games.
You played long travel. You played West Coast travel home.
Also home. Also long distance to go.
You go from one piece of analysis. You're dropping strength of schedule from our analytics guys that they gave you. The next one, you're just like, I got a feeling.
It's all about, look, you've got to play the hand that's dealt you, and sometimes you've got to go for a little bit of intuition. And this is telling me, I got a feeling the Giants are going to pull it out this week.
Yeah, I took the Rams. I need to see that offense get back on track a little bit, though, too. They've slowed a little bit after that very, very promising start. Mm-hmm. And
ran into some good teams. Jaguars,
but that was part of it.
Seahawks.
That was absolutely part of it. They went through a tough part of the schedule. So I just want to see them, get back to where they were.
Yeah,
really early in the season when they were putting up 30-plus. I know they scored 33 against Arizona, but that wasn't all the offense.
I like the Rams as well, as I said in that one. Let's go on to the Broncos, who travel to Philadelphia to face the Eagles, and it's Brock Osweiler era again in Denver. Eagles 7.5-point favorite in that one. That seems low. Going up against that front forward going up against Brock Osweiler.
Brock was decent in Denver, though. He was decent in Denver, bad in Houston.
I mean, it's a new offense, though, there.
He was okay.
I know. Decent, okay, same thing.
Decent suggests, kind of good.
The key here is Philadelphia is rolling.
Yes.
Both sides of the ball, playing with confidence, playing with a team that can beat you with the run game, the pass game on offense, a defense that's so much better on the back end than they have been in the past, and that great defensive line.
I mean, yeah, that offensive line in Denver going up against that defensive line in Philadelphia, I don't need to see anything more than that. That is the end of this game.
Eagles, highest graded pass rush of any team that we have in the NFL, and they do it basically with just their front four. Fletcher Cox, Jimmy Jernigan, Vinny Curry, Brandon Graham. That's tough to stop for anybody, especially if you're an offensive line in Denver where you're struggling at the moment. They're having some issues up front.
Denver started to become. We talked about regression a lot in the offseason.
They were the team that we thought they were. They are who we thought they were.
I'm not going to say it like that because I say that a lot. But Denver has started to become, that regression candidate that we called.
Yes.
And was talking to Zach Robinson about it more specifically the other day, and he was like, "Man, last year they were so good in coverage. They knew how to switch properly. Wade Phillips just coaches guys up so well, and those guys knew the scheme. My fear for them was that a new scheme was going to be slightly more conservative, do things a little bit differently. They're still talented back there, just not the same Denver defense down in, down out. They'll have spurts. They had some spurts where they made Alex Smith look as bad as he's looked all season in that game on Monday Night Football, where there was nowhere to throw. They really shut down that Kansas City offense for a portion of that game. They're just not the same Denver defense they've been in the past.
I will say Eagles with Jay Ajayi are officially the team to beat in the NFC. That is a scary proposition because the Eagles' run blocking is incredibly good this year.
Does he even know how to run through a hole, though?
I was going to say, like, does he know what good blocking looks like?
He'll just be dancing no matter what.
How do I get all this space? He's going to be looking for linebackers to run into because he's, like, so used to it. But they have the top run blocking center in Jason Kelce. They have two top 20 guards in Stefan Wisniewski and Brandon Brooks. They, right up the middle, he's going to have a lot more space than he did in Miami. And J.J. with some space is terrifying for opposing defenses. That offense just oof.
Yeah, somebody brought to our attention as soon as that trade happened, that's thrown a real spanner into the works of our bet because he has got an awful lot more space to work with now than he's had in Miami. That unfortunately works dramatically against me. I actually think that Denver defense is as good as it's been in the past, but the offense is just terrible. Like, the whole thing was only functioning earlier in the season because the run game was working. C.J. Anderson looked as good as he's ever looked, and Trevor Siemian had developed to being just okay or below average, but not terrible.
Right.
I mean, he was horrendous this past week against Kansas City, and the offensive line can't block for him, particularly the tackles, which is going to be a huge issue against Philadelphia. They just can't. They don't have an offense that can sustain anything. So the Eagles are fine on both sides of the ball. Denver are only fine on one side of the ball. Case closed.
Trevor Siemian's pressure, no pressure splits.
Yeah.
Did you throw those out the other day?
Yeah, I think so.
99.6 passer rating with no pressure. With pressure, 19.
Yeah, he's lowest in the league.
19.
I was saying, it seems like, I think I said at the beginning of the year, when he faces pressure, he's just like, I go here because I face pressure. Like, he's like almost robotic.
He's very predetermined in how he does things.
And that leads to some interceptions.
Also made that interception back across his body.
And he's going to be under a lot of pressure.
We all like the Eagles.
This also is a game, by the way, for Menelik Watson watch.
Ooh, we're up to 8. Sticky note.
This is where he gets back on track.
Is he going to get the Terrence Mitchell treatment, though? Because Terrence Mitchell and KC was on pace to just shatter the coverage record. Got benched. Is he ever going to get benched there?
They can't bench him. Look what's behind him.
I'm just saying.
That's like every tackle situation in the NFL.
Yeah, it's like
every starting tackle's job is safe.
It's the Greg Robinson thing. It doesn't matter how bad he is. There's nobody on the bench that can take his place.
There's not even enough starting tackles, never mind backup tackles that could start.
Yeah. All right. We all like the Eagles. That one's pretty obvious. On to the Ravens, who travel to Tennessee to face the Titans. Titans, 3.5-point favorites. Ravens, though, coming off a big 40-point, the biggest blowout of the season, 40-0 win over the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. Where do you see this one go? The Ravens, like, was that just a complete? It's like, was that just a complete aberration, or
we are halfway through the season now?
Was it because they're playing the Dolphins?
And I still have no idea what the Ravens are,
or the Titans, for that matter.
Yeah,
the Ravens are not a good offense. I'll just say, like, that's no matter what they did against the Dolphins, they still feel pretty confident that offense is hamstrung by.
Well, they scored. They were scoring on pick sixes.
Lack of talent.
Yeah, that was. Ryan Mallett completed 3 passes in relief of Joe Flacco in a 40-0 win.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just put that into perspective.
That Ravens defense, the secondary in particular, is playing really well.
Joe Flacco will play, by the way.
Jimmy Smith playing. I mean, this is the best Jimmy Smith we've seen. And at his best, a couple of years ago, he was looking like he could become the next great young cornerback. We're sort of seeing him back to that level. The rest of the cornerbacks are playing pretty well as well, having some really spectacular numbers. That Tony Jefferson, Eric Weddle combination has been really good in coverage, not quite as good against the run. They've missed some tackles, the two of those guys, but their coverage of this team is actually playing really quite well.
Jimmy Smith, lowest passer rating against in the NFL this season, 24.5. Only 100 yards allowed all year. That's it's doing some good work.
How about Ravens run defense against the Tennessee run game? That's going to be fun. Michael Pierce and Brandon Williams up front. Against that Tennessee offensive line that's still pretty solid across the board, and a team that wants to run that smash mouth stuff.
Also, this is your Hall of Fame watch. Corey Davis is going to be back.
He's playing again.
Yeah, so we got a lot of ground to make up to get
do.
to that 1,000 catches. We
Yes.
need at least 1,000 receptions in his career. It's been a slow start, not going to lie.
He is behind the 8 ball, 8 games into his career.
Yeah, he wasn't, he was a 4-year senior coming out, a little old.
Titans were the one team I couldn't believe passed on Marshawn Lattimore in the draft for Corey Davis. I like Corey Davis. I think they could have used Marshawn Lattimore, though. I'll just say. I like Titans in this game, though, as well. Steve?
Yeah, I like Tennessee. I mean, I just still think they're better overall.
Yeah, I've gone Titans as well, purely because I have no idea what the Ravens are.
Yeah, so.
Well, the Titans have been as Jekyll and Hyde as anybody.
Well,
yeah,
that
Titans'
doesn't help.
offense is just, it seems like the games that they should be dominating, they don't, and then vice versa, that I don't know what to make heads or tails of them. But let's throw it to George Sharurich. There you go, George. I think I nailed that one.
Nailed it, perfect.
And Eric Eager for our lock of the week.
Nailed Eager.
Take it away, guys.
Thank you, guys. It is time for the lock of the week. It is the best time of the week, in my opinion, and everyone else's that's listening to this podcast right now. So week 9 is here. Myself, George Shahuri, joined by the landlord of La Crosse, Wisconsin, the one and only, Eric Eager. What is going on?
Hey, I'm good, man. We got our lock of the week last week, 6-2 on those, so I'm happy. We had a good week overall, so, it's a little weird that it's already week 9. I feel like we just we just recorded our segment 17 times for the first time, and so it feels weird, that this is week 9, but we still have about half the season left and then playoffs, and so a lot of time to double down on what we've done or erase it all.
What I love about this time of the year is this is when everyone claims that the NFL starts to make sense, and everyone's like, yes, now I understand it. Finally, it all makes sense to me now. And then,
when you say everyone, you mean Mike Renner?
Yes, I mean Mike Renner and Bill Simmons, basically.
That's right.
The two people who understand the NFL.
Great company, though.
But yeah, I can't say anything bad about Renner. He helped me win a lot of money last week with his performance on the flag football gridiron. So that being said, we move on to our lock of the NFL week, which takes us to a wonderful, wonderful reunion between the Dallas Cowboys and their favorite son, Tony Romo. He's coming back to call the Dallas Cowboys Kansas City Chiefs game. We are taking the Chiefs. I've seen it everywhere from a pick'em to Chiefs actually getting a point or a point and a half, and we like both those numbers. So before we get into the Chiefs, let's talk really quickly. What's the number one thing that you think would have to go Dallas's way for them to win?
Yeah, I think it's just taking advantage of Kansas City's defense. Kansas City has really struggled against the run. Aside from Justin Houston, they've really struggled getting to the passer, and they've struggled in coverage. They got a little bit better last week with the return of Steven Nelson, who was one of our best slot corners last year, and he continued that on Monday night. But they're in the bottom third of the league in our grades in terms of pass rush, in terms of stopping the run and coverage. So if Dallas can take advantage of that, I think anything's possible for them.
I just want to point out that you said "are," as if you are like a member of the Kansas City Chiefs, which I'd like to point out is not the case. You are not rostered on the Kansas City Chiefs team. Is that clear?
Was that Freudian? Jesus. So there are, because they're our pick this week, not because I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. Both are true.
That is false. Very false. Anyways, thank you for that. I agree, for what it's worth. And moving on to Kansas City, the only thing that I really want to hit home is what I talk about every darn week, which is not the fullbacks, the most important position, but the second most important position, the quarterbacks. And Alex Smith, shockingly, is our third highest graded quarterback this year. And instead of giving you some passer rating stat, I'm going to give you what I think is my favorite stat that we kind of give out occasionally, which is the number of big-time throws, the really great throws that quarterbacks make, our highest graded throws. Alex Smith is third in the NFL, behind just Tom Brady and Russell Wilson. And then on the flip side, on the really bad throws, the turnover-worthy throws, he's only got 4 of those plays, which is the third fewest. And you look at Dak Prescott. Prescott has 9 of those big-time throws and 6 of the turnover-worthy plays, just kind of middle of the pack. So in a game that's going to probably be pretty close, and there's 2 good teams, I'm going to go with the quarterback that has proven to make more of the big plays and less of the turnover-worthy plays. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, and I think we've seen with some of our studies of quarterbacks that, it's really when that quarterback starts making those positively graded throws as well. And so Smith making more of them has certainly turned the corner, more so than the sort of avoidance of turnover-worthy plays, which has always been a trademark of him. So, yeah, I think he never puts his team in a bad spot. And I think when you're looking at being on the road, basically getting points, that's a good guy to have, a guy that generates a lot of very positive plays and minimizes the negative ones. I think on the other side of the ball, the Chiefs' best player, both versus the run and versus the pass, Justin Houston, is facing Dallas's worst offensive player in La'el Collins, who's got a PFF grade below 50. And so, as you've harped on, I think a few times here and there, one good player on defense can ruin an offense, even if that defense as a whole isn't particularly good. So I think things are shaping up well for Kansas City this week.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm going to keep beating that drum. So I'm glad that you're close to conversion here. But be easy there. La'el Collins, I know that he has played poorly in some cases, but he had that one game where he just got torched by Von Miller. So, that's negatively affecting his grade as well.
That's right.
Anyways, this is probably the only time that I'm going to be actually kind and sympathetic. So take it for what it's worth. Anyways, that is our lock of the week. Before we wrap it up, though, Kai Forbath destroyed us in week 1 by missing an extra point. And so whenever possible...
He did.
Yeah, it's very true. It's still kind of a fresh wound. It opens up occasionally. Whenever we can, we'd like to do a Kai Forbath Memorial extra point. So in this game, you think there is one worth talking about. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I've written about this on PFF a fair amount of times. Is the Kansas City Chiefs just kind of win on the margins, and and they found a different way last year with Tyreek Hill. This year they seem to have uncovered a diamond in the rough in Harrison Butker, who has made 18 consecutive field goals. He's won the AFC Special Teams Player of the Month, and he's going up against, on the other side, the special teams for Dallas. They have a replacement kicker right now in Mike Nugent, missed a field goal last week, has been shaky basically his entire career. And so in a game where, again, points are at a premium, Kansas City, I think, wins this game on the margins a little bit, and hence basically enhances our pick here.
It's a great argument. So what I'm taking away from that is you've written about Kansas City special teams quite a bit, which is a good thing that you brought it up now because no one has probably read those articles. And then secondarily, that points matter.
Hey,
folks,
man, clicks.
Write this down. Very important information that you're getting. That being said, if you want more of this golden information, you can head to the website, our picks column with our 5 best bets, which, do you have the record memorized here? What is it?
25, 14, and 1.
Great. I will get my TI-84 out and figure that out. But that's good. You can win money if you continue at that rate. That's up on the website. You can skim through the crappy writing and get to the picks. And if you want all of the picks and none of the writing, you can get yourself a PFF Elite subscription and get all of the against the spread and over-under picks. That being said, I think hopefully we'll live to see another week, and we'll be back with you next Friday.
Hey, thanks for that lock of the week, fellas. I will go put down my paycheck for the month on that one because we've been hit. What's our record now on those locks of the week? Taylor, do you have that offhand?
Our 5 most confident are really good.
Yeah, I think we're hitting like 65%. You guys should go check out the article that comes out every Friday. I think on those picks we are like 65%.
We're making money.
Yeah. We're in the green. All right, on to the Cardinals, who travel to San Francisco to face the 49ers. Cardinals, a 2-point favorite in that one. But quarterbacks, a little different than we expected a few weeks ago heading into this one. Cardinals, Drew Stanton, going to be starting for them. 49ers, we don't know still, actually. Jimmy G, they traded for him earlier this week. Kyle Shanahan said he might not even play this year, which I don't.
There's no way.
He gave no assurance that he would play this year, which.
He actively said that, he might not. That's no way that he doesn't play this year.
Isn't that part of the lure of getting him right now? Is just, seeing what you got?
I don't think he'll play this game, but he's going to play this year, and he's going to probably play next week.
He has to.
Yeah. There's no way that he sits on the bench all this season. That would be absolutely ridiculous. I think he's a perfect quarterback in this system, but since he's not going to be playing in this game, he's probably not the guy to talk about at the moment. So instead, you are seeing the majesty of Drew Stanton versus C.J. Beathard at quarterback. This is going to be a game for the purists. It really is.
Oh. Give him something to watch, guys. Give him something to watch. What are we looking for? Deshaun, I always resort back to DeForest Buckner's awesome for the 49ers.
We're going to get Reuben Foster,
DeForest
right?
Buckner, though, I will say, as much as I love him, the dude still cannot hold up to double teams.
That was coming.
Oh, my God.
Not his thing.
It was, and the Cardinals offense will double team crap out of you up front.
It's not even that. It's not even that he just can't hold up. It's amazing how far he will get moved on contact. Like before he's even had a chance to sort of bed in and fight the thing, just the initial contact launches him like a yard and a half off the line.
The crazy thing about NFL evaluation of defensive linemen is people think like 6 feet's an issue. I feel like the other end is the actual issue.
If you're that tall.
Yeah. 6'6" and above. Those guys get moved off the line of scrimmage all the time. It's very difficult to maintain your center of gravity.
Just in terms of like mass, I mean, the guy is over 300 pounds. How do you move 300 pounds that easily on contact without...
Because
you don't, Sam.
It's not
NFL
bottom heavy.
Lineman did.
It's not. He doesn't have that anchor. Look, Calais Campbell. If you look at Calais Campbell's run grades, and he was the guy that we comped Buckner to, his run grades were pretty bad early in his career, and they got better and better. So you're kind of banking on Buckner being able to add a little bit more mass, be able to hold up against double teams a little bit more. Our scouting report is pretty much right to a T, though. We said point of attack. If you double team him, trouble for him. But backside of run plays, he's so quick, shedding blocks, tackle radius down the line of scrimmage. He's shown that this season.
The double teams, I will say, even good elite NFL nose tackles, that is something that you still struggle with right out the gate, holding up to NFL double teams, because it's so different than the double teams you see in college.
Right.
It is so much more forceful. The guys NFL offensive linemen are so much better at executing them. It's just hard to not be moved by 2 guys pushing against you. One guy getting pushed by 2 guys, it is difficult to learn how not to cede ground there. So
last week was Buckner's first bad game of the season, I guess, but it was against the Philadelphia offensive line, which is one of the best offensive lines in the league.
It's called
as much as he may get moved by these double teams in Arizona, he's also going to destroy those guys.
He's also facing the Arizona offensive line.
Yeah.
Good tweet this week from you, Mike. Arizona,
what else is there?
Jacksonville, their pass rush percentage.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you know it off the top of your head, but essentially Jacksonville is now one of the best pass rushing teams in the NFL with Calais Campbell.
Yeah. Jacksonville top 5 in
Arizona.
pass rate from going from 29th, I want to say, a season ago. Arizona was number 1 last year. They're in the 20s this year in terms of pressure rate. Huge impact. I know they lost some other guys
Marcus
in Arizona.
Golden, too, but that's pretty significant.
Making a big impact. Calais Campbell, breaking news, he's good. All right. I like the 49ers in this one, though, still.
I think
at home.
Did I take the Niners?
I've seen what that Cardinals offense looks like with backups at quarterback. We've seen it far too much over the years.
I took the
and
Niners,
it's not good.
No, it's almost as if Drew Stanton is very bad at quarterbacking.
And they just don't have the defense anymore to make up for that like they used to.
So this is the game? This is the 49ers getting the first win of the season?
This is it.
This is it.
So
they might not have to go full tank mode either, the Niners.
Yeah.
If they have Jimmy G and every other team in the top 5 needs a quarterback, they're still going to be grabbing the best non-quarterback.
Also, it turns out every quarterback in college now is terrible.
Well, there's that too.
Up before now, Steve, who'd you have?
Niners.
Sam?
Yep, Niners.
Bobby Slowick. Do it, Bob.
On to the Redskins, who traveled to Seattle. Face the Seahawks. Seahawks 7.5-point favorites at home. Are the Seahawks the team? Are they neck and neck with the Eagles now? After adding Dwayne Brown to that offense, is he going to make that big of a difference?
Yes, that's what I said during our podcast after that trade, that Dwayne Brown makes the Seahawks Super Bowl contenders from being playoff contenders, because if you go from the worst left tackle situation in football to anything like average, and if he's above average, gravy. But if he just gets to average, Russell Wilson has the platform to be awesome Russell Wilson.
Creep back toward average.
Yep.
Dwayne Brown literally allowed half as many pressures as the Seahawks left tackles over his last 16 games.
Yeah,
I even dropped a
Literally
plus-minus number on
Give it to.
the mailbag.
you did.
That's frowned upon at PFF.
You know, I don't care. Fire my ass.
Oh, Steve's a bad boy.
Last
getting
18
edgy.
games. Last 18 games, they're minus 81 between George
You guys
Fant,
remember the old grades?
Riso
That's
Diambo.
actually terrible.
That's as bad as you could possibly get. Minus 81.
When
which
we
is about
start
25.
making audio clips and montages and stuff, I don't care. Fire my ass is going to be one of the first things that gets pulled up.
With no context whatsoever.
Contextless Steve. Fire my ass.
Steve got really risque and dropped his a plus-minus number.
I did. Okay, I'll switch gears here a little bit. Talk about the game more again. I did think of you though with watching that Redskins-Cowboys game down the stretch, and how you said Kirk Cousins just when it needs to make that big throw can't make that big throw, and that just seemed like the end of the Cowboys game. He had multiple opportunities to put the ball in a window that would have put them back in that game, and just whiffed on them. And
Instead, he's firing passes to Jalen Smith over the middle of the field.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my thing with Cousins. There are a handful of games throughout his career, and again, it was Carolina last year, must win for the playoff. It's a game like this against Dallas. It's these key games where Cousins just can't get over the hump. He's a solid quarterback otherwise. He's good at spreading the ball around and finding open receivers. He's continued to prove that. Statistically, he always finds a way to put up good stats. I got to see that next level stuff, and this might be it in Seattle. Look, I didn't think Deshaun Watson was going to go into Seattle and put up numbers like that. On paper, you don't think anybody's going to do that, but Cousins might be able to have some success there.
you think so? I don't think so.
He might have he might be able to have some statistical success,
Okay.
but to win the game, it's going to take. Can he make those big time throws that Watson was making?
He doesn't have
against Seattle.
He doesn't have the receivers to play well in this game. The type of receiver that Washington has right now are the type of receiver they're going to get absolutely bullied and shut down by that Seahawks
just
defensive backfield.
Too skinny at the moment.
And Pryor
Yeah.
doesn't have the speed, quickness to separate from guys like Richard Sherman. If he goes one-on-one physically, he's going to get abused.
Jameson Crowder game.
Yeah.
It really is. That's the only guy
Yep.
who's going to be able to get open against this
And
defense.
Jordan Reed still dealing with injuries.
And
all
even
that.
then,
Thompson, too.
you're asking him to go over the middle against Bobby Wagner and Earl Thomas and find a hole in there. That's going to be tough.
Hey, they gave Thompson 9 targets the other day. I know a lot of it's just check down game and all that stuff, but
That might be their best option. The one guy in the Seahawks defense I think has struggled more this season and looked far from his best has been KJ Wright. And if they can match him up one-on-one with Thompson, Wright I don't think can live with him athletically.
I thought you were going a different direction because I was going to talk about Sheldon Richardson has not been nearly the player they thought he was going to be.
No, that's
when
true.
they traded for him. He has not had nearly – he has 16 total pressures, no sacks,
and 6 were in week 1. So
only 7 run stops on the year. It's just like not –
Yeah.
the week 1 game, I thought he was on his way to being that disruptive interior presence again, 6 pressures and all that stuff. But like you said, only 10 since
I don't
then.
think anybody up front really has been as good as they've been in the past.
yeah, that's
Except Jerron Reed, bizarrely.
– well, that's not bizarre. He's going in the second.
becoming who we thought.
No, but
would
he was,
be.
I mean, he's the one guy that's gone the other way.
End of
He's
the day,
actually
though,
improved.
the Seahawks secondary is still
Yeah.
the Seahawks secondary. I
Russell
still
Wilson
like
up
them.
to
Russell Wilson still
number
Russell
2 in our QB rankings.
He's
I'm
again,
telling you,
breaking news.
you
He's
get
good.
him a good left tackle, he is going to be outstanding down the stretch.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks win this one and comfortably. Steve, who do you got?
Yeah, I got Seattle.
Same.
All right, on to the Chiefs, who travel to Dallas to face the Cowboys. Cowboys actually favored in this one. Cowboys offense hitting their stride a little bit more, but all of a sudden, wrench gets thrown into it. Ezekiel Elliott suspended for 6 games.
Again.
Not the stretch of games they wanted him to be suspended for, I'll
Right.
say. That could play a role in this one. Their offense they are first in points per drive at the moment, but I just don't see that being sustainable with Alfred Morris. Alfred Morris he's like a Ezekiel Elliott light, like a very similar in terms of vision and that sort of thing. Nowhere near the speed, nowhere near the power, and I think the offense is going to feel the effects of it.
But it's okay because Darren McFadden has been telling people he's been keeping himself ready. He's good to go. If he sees a gap, he's going to be able to hit it, and he's got the speed to break away. So all is well in Dallas.
That reminds me of like
More or less, yeah.
he's like the Demetrius Harrison playmakers. Like he just needs the chance, coach.
Just needs
put-
it. Just needs the ball.
Poor McFadden hasn't had enough chances in his career.
No.
I still come back to whether Zeke's there or not. I think there's this transition to Dak's team where I want to see games where Dak throws the ball 40, 45 times and carries them because they kind of build their offense around that, right? Sam, you keep talking about it's not this deep passing game. It's short. It's intermediate. They attack with the short stuff. He can make good decisions. I think this is his chance to just carry the team, right, and be the guy and take that second-year step that a lot of guys like a Russell Wilson, a Tom Brady, a Ben Roethlisberger, not necessarily second year, but second, third, fourth year, that they go from being the quarterback in a good situation where you win a lot of games to being the man on the offense. And then when Zeke comes back and he's a complementary piece, then ultimately long-term we're looking at a pretty special team. But I think at some point it's got to become Dak's team, and I think this is a chance to carry them.
This is a really interesting game all around. This Chiefs offense remains explosive. The Dallas defense has got a lot of weapons that can kind of attack up front. They've been able to get pass rush from a few different sources. The secondary is so young. It could go either way in the course of a game. So that side of the ball is pretty fascinating. Alex Smith is still like the 2017 Alex Smith. He's still going aggressively down the field, which is just awesome to watch, given the guy he's been for 10 years before now.
Do you see the tight window throw he made on Aqib Talib?
He's doing it every week. It's crazy.
He fired a ball like at Talib's elbow. And Talib wasn't looking. It was over the middle of the field and just, boom, put it right on his guy's hands. It was incredible. He never pulls the trigger on that.
It's amazing. I mean, this is the guy that is worth the number one overall pick. I mean, he's never been worth that before. He's been a guy that's been a quarterback you could probably win with if everything else falls your way. But you would never say up until this point, that guy is worth a number one overall pick. This guy is. The other side of the ball, though, that Dallas offensive line has been back to its dominant run-blocking best. So, obviously, there's a huge drop-off going from Zeke Elliott to Alfred Morris. But, like you say, they are similar types of players. And if the Kansas City defense can't hold up against the blocking, the holes are still going to be there. And Alfred Morris can still get through a hole and still make some yardage. He's just not going to be able to do sort of value-added stuff on the back end that Zeke Elliott can do once he gets over.
Definitely had some issues up front in terms of run fits.
Third worst run defense grade per PFF. Now, Dallas is second worst. So
I'm going to be interested to see, though, as well, how much extra workload Rod Smith gets now that Zeke Elliott's down, rather than McFadden.
You always jump right to Rod Smith every single time.
Why wouldn't you? We know what McFadden is, and it's not good. Rod Smith is intriguing. He's big. He's nippy. He can play.
You're going to have to define nippy.
Nippy? Like, quick.
Like cold?
Quicks.
Yeah.
No, different type of nippy.
Tad bit nipply out.
No, different type of thing entirely.
I feel like Dallas looks at McFadden and they're like, hey, we had him at 4 yards a pop a couple of years ago behind this offensive line. We'll take that. I feel like there's that comfort level with
Don't do it.
Run straight for 4 yards and let's do that.
Don't do it.
I just think that's what they're going to look at as far as workload goes.
I picked the Cowboys in this one. Truth for you right now, I would switch my pick.
I picked the Chiefs. I picked the Chiefs.
It's a toss-up to me. Steve?
I took Dallas.
Ooh.
I think I'm liking the way Dak's going to
I still think this Kansas City team is one of the best in the NFL. They've got 2 losses now. They were in those 2 losses basically both went down to the last couple of throws in the game. They could have won either of those games. They ended up riding the ship against Denver. I think this is still one of the best teams out there. They've got some problems, but I think they match up pretty well against the Cowboys.
All right. Let's move on to the Raiders, who are 3-point favorites traveling to Miami. Miami offense just unbelievably bad at the moment. They traded away their best offensive player over the past week for a 4th rounder. Obviously something going on behind the scenes there. Adam Gase not happy with the way they've looked offensively.
So to make his point, he traded away his player to the Super Bowl favorites.
So we'll see if they can get back on track, though, against a Raiders defense that a lot of people have gotten on track against.
Yes.
So is that, do they have a chance in this one, Miami, to do anything offensive? Is there any chance that the whole Adam Gase,
I think they're
yelling at his team is going to make this difference?
No, I think their only hope in this game
talent
is that their defense has one of those games that's able to shut down that Raiders offense, because the Raiders offense has had multiple games this season where they have really struggled against defenses that aren't as good as Miami, really. I mean, Denver obviously is a really good defense. They shut them down. Washington's defense shut them down. Miami's got that kind of defense. Baltimore's defense did a pretty good job against them. They've had their struggles. So I think Miami's only real hope is to keep this a game where Oakland doesn't score more than 20, and then hope that they can match that kind of output and somehow stay in this game.
And Jay Cutler is supposed to be playing, but his ribs are still hurting. So a somewhat injured Jay Cutler is just that seems like a terrible proposition.
Although we were here last week saying, hey, the team's so much better with Matt Moore. Matt Moore rough against Baltimore.
Oh yeah.
Jarvis Landry was rough against. Look, I feel like we've always been on the Jarvis Landry is good side of things. There's like this huge debate, especially in the fantasy world, because he just racks up fantasy numbers. But as far as just like pure value, there's a lot of games where it's like 10 catches for 70 yards and all that stuff. He was bad against Baltimore. He was getting owned against Baltimore. When he had a chance to make a guy miss, he just wasn't doing it. They need more production out of their receivers. Just to highlight how we grade, by the way, Jay Ajayi, 3.4 yards per carry, but 86 run grade, tied for 4th in the NFL right now, just showing how bad that Miami offensive line has been.
Yeah, it's still averaging like 2.8 yards after contact per attempt. Like, this is what he looked like his rookie year. Had similar sort of splits before then he broke out second year. Like I said, he's probably going to flourish behind that Philly line. I don't know if the Dolphins have any semblance of a run game without him, though. Like, that is also an issue. Like, the fact that nothing looks like it's going to be working for the Dolphins offense.
Right.
I mean, the statistic last week perfectly sums it up. They gained, 23 yards, and he gained 37 after contact.
Yeah, that's rough. I got Oakland in this one.
The Raiders, though, offensively, I wrote about it earlier this week. They have the worst play-action attack in the NFL, which doesn't make any sense to me. They are dead last in terms of yards off play-action, dead last in terms of yards per attempt, dead last in terms of usage.
I was going to say, they're not using it much.
You use it fewer than 10% of their offensive dropbacks, which, like, you invested. They invest $40 million in their offensive line, and they are running an offense that could operate at the same level behind the Seahawks line because they don't use play action. They get the ball out immediately after. It's all quick passing game. Derek Carr's never under any pressure because that ball is firing out of his hand. It's like, why did you pay?
There are no other quarterbacks that have a completion percentage differential worse than 7% worse when they use play action, and Derek Carr is at 18.6% worse when he uses play action this season.
It's a joke.
And use it more. We've been using your theory on the pod all week. Sam and I talked about it. Zach and I talked about it. Just every team use play action 20% of the time. Like, get up there, just use it, and it's gonna moves defenders. It does over time generally make for some easier throws. And they're just not doing it.
The craziest Derek Carr stat that I found looking up for the season was his completion percentage when he gets rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds or less is 71.7. When it's over 2.5 seconds, 43.3. Almost a 30 percentage point difference between. They just don't have any semblance of route concepts that last longer than immediately after the snap.
Right.
And like, offenses know it. Like, you're not going to get burned by double moves.
And he's not going to be extending plays. Like, Alex Smith's doing a great job of that this year. Of course, Aaron Rodgers all the time. He's not going to extend plays to find guys.
It's ugly there in Oakland, but like I said, I still like Oakland in this one.
Yeah, just about.
Does he need us right now?
Last game of the week, Detroit Lions, 2.5-point favorites, traveling to Green Bay to face the Packers. Packers, obviously, Brett Hundley did not look ideal 2 weeks ago, but they had their bye week. Maybe they retooled. Maybe they did some new things offensively to get him up to speed, but early returns on him, not great. But at the same time, Lions, another team in free fall. They've lost 3 in a row, dropping to 3-4 on the year. Where do you see this one going, Sam?
Yeah, this is interesting. I think that the Packers really do need to retool what they're doing on offense to make the offense Brett Hundley. They can't just put him in there and ask him to do a similar role to what Aaron Rodgers does, just worse, because he's so much worse than Aaron Rodgers that it's just going to be a disaster. Because Rodgers, even when he's not on his game, that offense looks bad. You need Rodgers to be like at the peak of his powers for that offense to be viable. So to ask a guy like Brett Hundley to step in there, do the same things and make it work, it's a horrible idea. It's not going to work. So you need to do what the Houston Texans did and completely rebuild that offense around what he does well, simplify what you're asking him to do, take advantage of some of his athleticism and limit the amount of full field reads, let him just use his powerful arm, do the simple stuff, and hope that it makes his job easier and you're not asking him to do as much. Otherwise, they're just not going to be able to get anything done on offense, even against the Lions defense. It isn't phenomenal.
They need to rely on the run game a little bit more. I mean, even in a tight game against New Orleans, you're still passing a little bit more with Hundley than they're running the ball. Aaron Jones running the ball really well.
Well, especially when if you get Aaron Jones and Ty Montgomery in that backfield, there's a lot of talent there to lean on.
I mean, they can just get into the collegey trickeration stuff. Get all of them back there and get your jet sweeps going, Mike. I mean, you got to get creative. You got to get creative with Hundley.
It has to get creative. I with 2 weeks off, if they come out with whatever the same stuff they ran against Minnesota, it's almost like a fireball offense. If like they should look the exact same way, because you cannot you just can't expect him to be Aaron Rodgers. You have to expect him to be a completely different quarterback, and you have to run a completely different offense with him. So we'll see about that. The other side of the ball, though, is where I want to see is, can the Lions offense sort of get back on track? We've talked about Matt Stafford and his struggles. Is this the game where he does it? Is this the game where he comes back to the Lions offense, shows some signs of life?
They got to figure it out in the red zone is the big thing. Look, between the 20s, he was throwing the ball really well. He was like old Matt Stafford for a number of those throws. Zipping, cover 2 shots, and driving the ball down the field. But in the red zone, I was really disappointed in how he handled the last play of the game. 3-man rush, just kind of like ran into pressure and chucked it up. Like, Stafford needs to be better in those tight areas in the red zone. Whereas, look, they've been playing with fire the last 2 years, right? Every game is close in the fourth quarter. Last year they pulled them off. This year it's starting to revert back a little bit. So,
I would say
we were right about that.
There you go.
That's what you're trying to say.
I think this is probably the last game that they don't have Taylor Decker back at left tackle, which means this is the last game where you have Greg Robinson at left tackle, and the last game where you can truly go after that and try and torpedo this offense through Greg Robinson. So I think the Packers have one shot to make that happen. Go after Greg Robinson and really torpedo really kill the offense.
If you just rush 2 guys against Greg Robinson every time,
that'll work.
Just like put 2 guys over his shoulder.
One will do it.
Okay, yeah, you just need one. You're
is
right.
the key.
Oh, that is it. Oh, wait, let's make our picks. My bad. I'm taking the Lions on the road.
I took Detroit.
Okay,
I went with Green Bay.
You went with Green Bay.
I did go with Green Bay.
Any big reasoning, or just like
Greg Robinson's still there? That's all I need to see.
Fair enough. Well, that's it. Those are our picks for the weekend's games. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will be back again talking to you next week. Have a good one.